Hello, everyone. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Griffian, and I am the Education Programs Coordinator for Business Link. Thank you for joining us on our webinar today, all about finding business statistics on the Statistics Canada website. I feel like I need to say that a few times to make that happen. So happy to be here with Darren and Desiree, who are going to walk us through all of that this morning. It is great information, great knowledge to have for market research, for your business planning, just for your general knowledge. So many great valuable tools and techniques and things you can find on the StatsCan website. Before we begin, we have some housekeeping. So the first bit of housekeeping is this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the Business Link website in the next couple of days, next 1 to 2 business days. So you'll be able to see it again if you missed anything at that point in time. If you have questions, you are welcome to ask them throughout. And there's the best way to do it is to put your questions into the little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You're going to see the Q&A box there. So by all means, if you have questions or want a bit of additional information on the demos that are happening today, you're welcome to put those questions in there. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that at Business Link, we are honored to provide services to all entrepreneurs and specialty services to our immigrant and Indigenous entrepreneurs. We are inclusive in our cultural understanding and awareness of the histories of our country. With that, we will start this event with a land acknowledgement that recognizes all of Alberta. We want to acknowledge that in the province of Alberta, we are situated on the traditional territories of Treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10, ancestral homeland of diverse First Nations group, Métis and Indigenous people, whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial, and whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to influence our vibrant community. We pay respects to the Indigenous people of this land, past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land on which we reside. So once again, thank you for joining us. And I'd love to pass this over now to Darren and Desiree, who will take it away and begin the conversation about finding statistics on the Statistics Canada website. So thank you for joining us.
Desiree, would you like to begin?
Thank you, everyone, for taking time to join today's sessions. My name is Desiree. I am the, point this is like a supporter role in today's presentations about finding business statistic, business-related data on Statistics Canada website, just like what Linda's mentioned have to be repeated a couple of times. So, and today we have our colleague Darren Dostupski, and he's physically in Winnipeg. I'd like to share the information with you. And before the session starts, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm physically in Vancouver, and I'm so grateful to be able to join these sessions in unceded territory of the people of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Slave Nations. I encourage you to take a couple of minutes to acknowledge the land that's where you are, and I'm going to pass on the floor to Darren.
Thank you, Desiree. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Bonjour tout le monde. Bienvenue, everyone. My name is Darren Dostupski. I'll be the presenter today, my colleague Desiree. And I'm in Winnipeg, so Treaty 1 territory, home of the Métis Nation. So just want to, in the spirit of reconciliation, also highlight that. We really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend today. We are always trying to sort of increase the understanding and the capacity and the data literacy of Canadians all across the country in terms of being able to identify and recognize the type of information that Statistics Canada has, how to use it. So that's what we're going to try and do today. I have a few slides that I'm going to start, just a little introduction to Statistics Canada as the national statistical agency. Then I'm going to take us to Statistics Canada's website, and I'm going to walk you through some of the sort of data sets that might be extremely useful in terms of people who are thinking about business plans, thinking about trying to assess potential markets and market areas and things of that nature. We do encourage questions, and in fact, we're happy to hopefully have some time at the end to answer questions. But if I'm going over the website or going from site to site too quickly, please feel free to sort of just interject and say, "Oh, how did you get there?" We acknowledge that Desiree and I have heard more times than we can count that the Statistics Canada's website can be a little bit intimidating. It's an extremely extensive amount of information, but this is a beginning of a journey. We want you to sort of become more proficient, more comfortable, accessing the site, looking for data, becoming more efficient in terms of finding what you're looking for. So that's sort of our goal for today's session. So with that, as I've said, I will just quickly share my screen, just a couple of quick slides that we'd like to sort of share. So if anyone just confirm you're able to see my screen, okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So again, we've sort of highlighted exactly what we're going to try and do today. I'm going to sort of identify, the notion that the objective is to sort of help you make good decisions. From a business perspective, you can use intuition, but you can also use data as a really helpful planning tool. From census data to business specific data, it helps you quantify, measure some of the things that can be extremely helpful for you as you're making decisions and planning, things of that nature. And then we're going to do the navigation. I will just spend a few moments talking about Statistics Canada as the national statistical agency. We are tasked with collecting, compiling, reporting information about the population and the economy and the social and the cultural demographics of Canada, so people are able to understand how this great country is evolving and changing. We are tasked with providing good, neutral, objective information. As Desiree likes to say in the presentations, our website is there 24/7, 7 days a week. So if you're a night owl, feel free to sort of access the website whenever you can. We try to put as much publicly available data for free. And this is your data. So we want you to go in there, access it, learn more about it. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg with respect to the data sets. We're going to focus on business data, but there are a whole host of other data sources and data sets that might be of interest to you. For example, I'll touch on very briefly today the census, which is one of the largest data collection efforts that the National Statistical Agency does. But there are 400 or more other surveys on a whole host of other subjects and topics that you might be interested in. And so, as I said, as you begin this journey of becoming more familiar with Statistics Canada and the website, you can start to explore other topics. And hopefully you'll find information that's going to be helpful to you. So as I said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here now. One of the things we're trying to do with these presentations is rather than just having a bunch of slides showing you here's the type of data, we're going to try and make them a little bit more interactive, a little bit more live, for lack of a better word. And so I'm going to go directly to the StatScan website. I'm going to walk you through some of these data sets and we're going to go from there. So I'm just going to see if I can share my screen. And if everyone can just confirm you're able to see the Statistics Canada's website.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful, thank you. So for those who are maybe new to Statistics Canada, you can access the website www.statcan.gc.ca. This is the homepage when you come to Statistics Canada's site, and there are, there are a number of key aspects we like to highlight in terms of not necessarily business specific, but some aspects that can be really useful to people. One of them is the daily, which is our daily newsletter. So the daily is something that obviously gets published every day, and it has an introduction to a whole host of different topics that might be of interest to you. So these are type of things that you can subscribe to. I'm not that in tune with social media, but we have social media opportunities in terms of accessing the website, as well as just some quick key indicators that you can look at. If you're looking for just a simple number or a simple statistic, you can look at for key indicators for Canada or for your province or territory that you might be interested in, and just a whole host of the type of indicators that are available. I'm just going to give you a quick glimpse in terms of wealth and debt service ratio and industrial capacity, labor force characteristics, demographics. There's a tremendous amount of information that's there above and beyond business related statistics. But today our focus is on business related statistics. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And if you have questions about other training that we offer, you can go to the workshops and training and conferences section of our website, as well as reach out to us and we'll be happy to provide more information. So today, I'm going to try and introduce you to 6 or 7 different data sets. The first one we're going to start with is the census of population. We're going to talk to you a little bit about NAICS codes, or North American Industrial Classification codes, and how they're structured and how they're organized. And if I have time, I'll show you a couple of sites outside of Statistics Canada, part of the federal government, part of Innovation, Science and Technology Department. And there you can find additional business statistics on financial performance, revenues, expectations in terms of portfolios and business planning tasks. And so I'm going to show you that, as well as sort of show you why we're spending some time talking about NAICS, because on those sites outside of Statistics Canada, they will often let you or require you to look for businesses or industries by their NAICS code. So I'll spend some time talking about those NAICS codes, and then we'll talk about a couple of other StatScan surveys. So as a starting point, we're going to start with the census. And one of the best ways to sort of think about the website and how to find information, and please feel free to post in the chat in terms of if you've come to the website before, if you've sort of been able to find information, or if you've been looking for particular information, feel free to post in the chat. And if we have time, we'll explore those as well. But I'm going to sort of give you an indication of sort of these tabs, all the tabs at the top of the page here, by subject, data, so specific to if you're looking for specific data, analysis. This is analysis that we provide. In addition to just the data per se, we'll provide some context to the analysis. This is often what's done in the daily articles. There's reference material. Reference material can be extremely useful. One of the great things about statistics and data is that it allows you to sort of quantify and define and measure things, but you often need to know what exactly or how those measurements are being defined. So the reference material will help you sort of be sure that you're interpreting and understanding the data correctly. Geography. So one of the nice things is that much of the data that's available is not just for Canada, but it's for the provinces, it's for the territories, it's for cities, it's for, as part of the census. The census allows us to get really detailed information of very small levels of geography, communities and things of that nature, that generally isn't going to be available from other surveys. So if you're thinking about establishing a business in Calgary or Edmonton or Fort McMurray or whatever it might be, you can look for data for those communities, but you can also look for data within those communities to see if there's pockets of population that might be your target audience or things of that nature. You can look and see if there's particular characteristics like certain educational attainment levels or income levels that can be really useful when you're thinking about a business plan, thinking about who's your potential customers, where might they be coming from. Census is going to allow you to sort of look at some of that data at very small levels of geography. So that's sort of where we're going to go to next. And then there's information, if you get lucky enough to be included in the StatsCan survey and you want to verify that this is legitimate, or if you want more information, there's some information for people who are respondents, some basic information about StatsCan, and then a link I'll show you later, which will take you to all other federal government departments. So we're going to start with the census. Any questions so far in the chat or anything of that nature? Everyone's okay in terms of how to get to the site and where to start to look for information? As I said, we'll start with the census as the first data set because it's usually the most extensive data set. And it doesn't have data specific to businesses per se, but it has a lot of information with respect to demographics and social cultural characteristics that might be extremely useful. So if I click on the census link, it takes us to what's called the census landing page, the home page. And here, again, we can look by census data, census analysis, articles, reference material specific to the census, and then census topics. And then levels of geography that the data is available for. As well as I showed you on the web page, the landing home page, the different indicators. We have the same thing for the census. You can have a pull down menu, and there's a list of different indicators that you might be interested in. For example, the types of dwellings. Maybe you're thinking about a business, home renovation business, or if you're looking for particular segments of the population. We have information on the Indigenous population. We have information on immigrants and recent immigrants, those who come within the last 5 years. We have data on housing. We have data on family types, educational attainment levels, and things of that nature, and at different levels of geography. This is a sort of a quick sort of introduction to where you would start to look for census data. If I click on the Census Data tab, it takes us to an indication of the type of data that's available. There are census profiles and there are data tables. And census profiles provide you with an introduction to all of the different information that's available from the census. So I'm going to click on this, and if someone wants to sort of suggest a community or a name, I encourage you to sort of look at the community you're interested in as I go along. I'm in Winnipeg, so I'm going to cheat and use Winnipeg as the sort of the example here. But please feel free to look for your community or the community that you'd be interested in. So you see here we can look by province, or we can look by specific, some handful of tables. If I click on Alberta, I've decided I'm not going to be Winnipeg centric. I'll be Alberta. I'll be more inclusive of our Alberta neighbors. So if I click on Alberta, this will give you an indication of all the different communities that you can find information for. Census subdivisions, which are essentially towns and cities and villages and things of that nature. So we can get data for just all of these different communities. We can get it for Calgary, Camrose, things of that nature. And you'll get an indication of just how detailed the level of geography that the census data is available for. And we can also get it by very small communities. And I'm just going to see if I'll go to census metropolitan areas. So these are larger cities that you might want to get data for, as well as census divisions and things of that nature. Each province in Canada, territory, is divided up into census divisions. Alberta is divided up into 19 census divisions. So if you wanted to look at areas within the province, you can do that. If we wanted to look at the Wood Buffalo, we can do that, or Edmonton. I'll do Edmonton just because it's going to be a large city. And I'll just give you a quick glimpse of what the census profiles are and how you can find information from them. So if you're familiar with this, this might be a sort of something you've seen before, but if you're new to census data, it's really useful to sort of see what's available. You can look at population change, look at age structure. So think from a business perspective, if you have a particular target population in mind, if you're looking for a particular age cohort that might be of interest to your business or helpful for your business or a planning perspective, You can use the census as a planning tool to see what the age structure of different communities are. You can look at housing types. You can look at family types. How many people are married? How many people are single? How many people live alone? Think about all the type of questions you might have. You can get information on families by lone parent or two-parent families. You can get information by ethnic or cultural characteristics. So Indigenous population or people of particular ethnic origins or ethnic backgrounds. The census allows us to look at information like that. It also allows us to look at things that might be particularly interesting from a business perspective, which is household income. Household income ranges. How many people make more than 50,000? How many make less than 50,000? What's the median income? What's the average income for different household types and different individuals? So the census can be really extremely useful from a business perspective in terms of the type of data that's available. It's also data on low income and educational attainment level. So if you're looking for a particular educational attainment level that's going to be attractive or necessary for a particular business, the census allows us to look at that. So that's really all the time permitting that we can cover with respect to the census. But I just wanted to sort of make sure that if you're new to the StatsCan website, you have an idea of what's where to find stuff and what's available. And feel free to go in and explore and see if you can find any information that might be helpful.
And just to
Questions?
clarify on that as
Certainly.
well, Darren,
Certainly.
is when we're talking about market research and we're talking about the StatsCan website, what we're really talking about here is quantitative data. So in the market research, we're calling that numbers and statistics and quantitative data. So we have a few people here who've asked things like, can you show us how to get the census data for a specific postal code? Or does Canada post poll from this recent 2020 census for their marketing channels? So a couple of those questions there on that.
I can certainly show you how to find particular areas by postal code. You can look up the data by postal code. There's a particular tool on the StatsCan website called Geo Search, so you can look up communities. With respect to what the Post does, I can't speak to what they do with the data. I mean, I can imagine they, like every other business, will be using census data, but I don't know specifically what tools they might be using from the census. But if I may just spend another moment, if I go back to the census, I go back to the census landing page. There's a section here called geography. And so this will give you an indication of the type of data that's available by the different levels of geography. So you can look at the maps. You could look at different tools that's available. We have a tool called Geo Suite that lets you look for information. But you can also search the website. And so if I type in Geo Search, this will take us to a tool that can be extremely useful because it allows us to look for communities. Oftentimes, people come to the website, but they're not really certain what level of geography or what area they're looking for, but they may know something basic as a postal code. So this, and this may take just a moment to load, this is an indication of the Geo Search tool. And on here, you can search. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. You can search by community. I could type in Winnipeg or Edmonton, but you can also type in a postal code. So if someone would be so kind as to give me a postal code, I'll type that in and we'll see what we find. If someone wants to read out a postal code for me or post it in, I can't see the chat, but if someone wants to give me a postal code, let's use that as a live demonstration.
There's a postal code posted at the chat, Darren, is T1Y2E4.
T1Y2E4?
T1Y2E4.
Oh, T1Y. T1Y2E4? Is that correct?
Yes, you are.
Let's see what comes up. So I'm going to click on the loop, the search button. And oh, let me see, there might have to be a doesn't seem to want to. Desiree, have you got a tip as to what I'm doing wrong here?
Well, it's perhaps it's the internet is a bit of slow, but I tried to enter T1Y, the first 3 digit of the postal code. Then I would be able to see that are a list of the the dissemination area associated with the first 3 digit of the postal code there. So maybe we can try to enter T1Y and for us to see the list.
Ah, there we go.
Perfect.
So I think I inadvertently typed TLY. So no, case in point, make sure that you're actually using alphanumeric numbers and not all letters. So apologies on that regard. So the T1Y, what was the other? So here's the
2E4. T1Y, 2E4.
2E4. Here we go. So this will take us to what's called a dissemination area. This is the smallest area for which census data is available for. So if I click OK, it will take, oh my goodness. There we are. So here's a very quick indication of the actual area that we're talking about. And you'll get an indication of just how small the area for geography that information would be available for can be found. And so if I just scroll out, we'll sort of get try and put a context in terms of where in Calgary this is actually located. So I'm not familiar with Calgary, but for those who are, you might recognize what community this is. And the nice thing about Geo Search is that you can also, well, there's a couple of options. If I click on the display and click hover, and then put the cursor over, it gives me a quick indication of the type of information that's available. So it tells me the population, 638 people, tells me the total number of dwellings, 210 as of 2021, and as well as the land area. But you can also get detailed information. So if I take this dissemination code, let me just write this down. If I take this dissemination number, 48061055, and I go back to the census profiles, we can look up that specific dissemination area. So again, this is recognizing how you can tie the information available. So I can now type in 48061055. Was that the correct dissemination area number, if anyone recalls correctly? And click the loop button, and that will take us to the actual profile for that specific area. 618 population, 217 dwelling. And now you'll be able to get that specific data for age structure, family type, ethnicity, Indigenous population for just that small little area within Calgary. And if you wanted to know a little bit more, you can go to the additional information little button here, and it will take you to an extra page that gives you the map. So we can just make sure we're looking at the correct geographical area. Just scroll out a little bit so we can look at the map. Also give an indication of data quality, as well as geographic hierarchy, where it's located within the larger area, City of Calgary. This is CN. So just an opportunity to sort of use 2 different tools on Statistics Canada's website to find the data you're looking for. You can use Geo Search to type in a postal code and find the dissemination area. And once you have the dissemination area, you can go to the profile and call up the detailed data for the profile. So I hope that was helpful. And again, this is tools that we want you to be familiar with and that are available to you. Any other questions? A great question. Any other questions? No other questions?
We do have a few. Say I wanted to know the population of Filipinos and Africans in Calgary, as well as businesses owned by this group. How do I find that here? Are you able to get that granular with these statistics here or not?
We can get granular with respect to ethnicity. So we'll be able to give you accounts of, well, I'll show you a little tip. This is new for 2021. You can add geographical areas to the census profile. So I have the census dissemination area for Calgary. If I wanted to add Calgary to put some context, I can simply add a Calgary. It's going to ask me what Calgary do I want? Do I want the city of Calgary? Do I want the CMA of Calgary? I don't know if you have a preference. CMA is the Census Metropolitan Area, so it's the city of Calgary and all the surrounding municipalities. City of Calgary is just the city of Calgary. So if you want just for the city of Calgary, I can select Calgary. And it's now added to the profile. And so if we're looking for specific data on ethnicity, we do have ethnic origin and ethnic identity data in the profile. We just have to scroll down. We have information on languages, but I wanted to sort of highlight, and here you'll get an indication just how detailed the data is. Income by household type, by employment, things of that nature. And you'll see just how much information is included. So we can get counts for the number of Filipino or whatever ethnic group, if there's sizable enough counts to report. One of the key aspects for Statistics Canada is that we do have to protect the confidentiality of respondents. So if there's only one person of a particular ethnic origin in a community, we won't release those numbers. We'll just suppress them or round them up. So we don't want to indirectly identify someone. So if the counts are really small, we might not be able to show it. But for the most part, we'll be able to look to see mother tongue, so how many people speak other English or French or other non-official languages by the census dissemination area or for Calgary as a whole. And we're also able to look at ethnic origin. So if I keep scrolling, this is all language data, all data. So if you're looking for a particular market that might be speaking Farsi, for example, the census is going to allow you to identify how many Farsi speakers there are in a particular community, how many there are in Calgary. And then we can look at ethnic origin. But you add another question, a sort of wrinkle, is can we look at the number of business owners by ethnic origin? The answer is not from the census, but we have introduced a new data set called the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. And in that survey, we're starting to collect and report information on characteristics of business owners, like how many businesses are owned by women. And we do have some data on businesses owned by the visible minority population or racialized population. It's a sample, it's not a census. So it won't be the level of detail, but it provides some data. So it might not be specific to the Filipino population, but it might identify how many businesses are owned by visible minority or racialized population. So the answer is yes and sort of yes to the two questions. And again, I'll just sort of go through here quickly. Language is spoken, there's a lot of language data, and there is ethnic origin data as part of the profile too. So you said there were other questions as well? So if there are other questions with respect to the census, let me know. I can I could scroll through. I will say there's over 2,000 variables as part of the census profile. So I mean, I could spend the whole hour just going through the census profile. We want to make sure that people are familiar with some of the other surveys and information as well. So that data about ethnicity is available. It's also available in data tables. I'm using the profile here, but there's also data tables, immigration status and things of that nature. So if you want to look how many immigrants there were, there are also tables on the site that allow you to cross-tabulate. So if I want to look at ethnic by age structure, you can do that using data tables. And I'll keep going here, but here we're starting to see immigrants by source country and things of that nature, selected birth of immigration, things of that. So really extensive amount of information with respect to, here's a visible minority population. And
so we have someone asking for the data sets. Are there explanations regarding how the data was collected? I'm assuming this is all through the Census Canada census done. And how often is Canada census done?
Wonderful question. So census is done every 5 years. It's an extensive undertaking, so it can't. It's difficult to do it more frequently. There is detailed under the reference section. There is detailed descriptions of the methodology that's used, who's included, and how the data is collected. So those are wonderful questions. And the one challenge with the census is it's not as timely because it's only every 5 years, but its depth and its breadth in terms of the amount of information included surpasses anything that's available on a monthly or yearly basis. So here you get an indication. So I hope that answers. Other questions?
Yeah. For the UK, here we have one. For the UK, the ONS provides data set explanations and breakdown of the data and explanations of unique points of the data sets.
Yep.
Where did that go? Does StatsCan do this as well?
I'll show you a prime example. So here we've got a category. This is ethnic origin, European, not otherwise stated. So if you look on the data set, there's a little footnote here. If I click on that footnote, it'll give me a little quick window that describes, okay, what exactly do we mean by that? As well as others, there'll be footnotes, there'll be references that you can look at and go to more detail. You can also go to what's called the Census Dictionary. The Census Dictionary is probably the most important reference tool for people working with the census, because the Census Dictionary describes every variable. It describes how it's defined, how it's changed over time. And so it's not the most exciting reading in the world, but it's really useful to have that and to be able to refer to it, just so that you're able to know that you're interpreting and understanding the data correctly.
And if you're looking for business locations by postal code, industrial areas. So how can a Geo Search help me find the postal code areas for industrial or other business address concentrations? Okay, so for example, in the city of Calgary, we have a number of industrial parks. We have Foothills Industrial Park, we have Highland Industrial Park. Probably in all of those locations, someone like Tony who's asked the question is looking for information on what's going on in these industrial parks and the businesses there and that sort of thing. Does Census Canada do sort of that kind of reverse lookup where it's like, oh, I want to look for postal codes in industrial parks? Are you able to do things like that, or do you need to know a little more before you look it up?
Well, you need to know a little bit more, and you also have to recognize that while census is a really extensive data set, for business specific data, there is another data set called the Canadian Business Patterns, and it gives an indication of the number of businesses in communities by their NAICS code or what type of activity, and even range of size of employees. So that's a different data set. It may not though go down to the level of detail of individual postal codes. So you always have to, again, we have to sort of be cautious about how much detail we report.
And is that something you're going to show us
yes,
upcoming? Okay, so let's just tackle that then upcoming. Okay.
Sure, I'll show you the Canadian Business Patterns data set as one of the data sets we want you to be familiar with. But the census is obviously where we always like to start because of its depth and breadth. So I really encourage all of you to sort of go in, see what's there, and recognize what you can and can't do with the data, and in terms of the detail. And then look for other data sets. The one nice thing or the one challenge about research is there's rarely one single data set that's going to provide everything you're looking for. You have to be conversant with, just like I said at the beginning, we do 400 surveys. You have to be conversant with some of those other data sets. And then think about how I can merge and amalgamate some of this data to glean more meaning from it. So this is the census. Let me just go to Statistics Canada's homepage, and I'll go directly to, I'll go directly to the Canadian business patterns because I'll show you the data tables, but I want to come back and show you quickly the NAICS, because that's sort of foundational information you need to know. In fact, the Canadian business patterns reports data by NAICS codes. So if I go to, again, this is StatsCan's homepage. We've got the sort of the tabs on the top. If you're not really sure what you're looking for, one of the best places to start is to go to the Subjects tab, and it gives you an indication of the broad topics of information that might be available. So we have information on business, consumer services, business performance and ownership. If I click on these, it will take me to our business data hub, and you can look for additional data sources like business dynamics, business ownership, financial statements, things of that nature. That's if you're not really sure what you're looking for. This is a great place to start because it takes us to sort of the beginning point of all the different business related statistics that Statistics Canada has. So for example, here's a visualization on representation of women on boards of directors. We have data on how many businesses are owned by women and things of that nature. So we're trying to become more inclusive in terms of reporting more detailed data. This is a good place to start. If you have, excuse me, if you have an idea of what you're looking for, Canadian business patterns, for example, I'll just go to the home here again, just to simplify things. You can always use the search button. And in this case, I'm going to search Canadian business patterns. Ignore the fact that I have all caps on. And it will take you to an indication of the type of information that's available, as well as custom data requests that can be made. So many of the data sets that Statistics Canada has on our website, we publish data for free, but sometimes you can get more custom, detailed data at a cost. There's no cost for the data, but there's cost for preparation of the data. So you can get custom extractions from the Canadian business patterns, for example. But I just want to show you the sort of the type of information that's available from the Canadian business patterns. So this is giving an indication of sort of the custom requests that can be made, and then an indication of a specific article that's from the daily. And a whole host. I'm just looking for the most recent daily. Well, see if I can find the most recent release for the Canadian business patterns. Here we go. So this is what I was looking for. This is just the most recent release. The releases are twice a year, June and December. So there will be a new release of the Canadian business patterns shortly. But this will give you an indication of the type of data tables that's available. Information with respect to just the number of employers in Canada and the data tables that shows the distribution of employees or business counts by type, with or without employees, and then by different communities. So if I click on this data table here, it will show me the community that we're looking for. So we might be interested in Calgary, for example. If you want really detailed geographies within the city, that may or may not be possible. That would likely require a custom request. But for those who are new to StatsCan's website, if you go to a data table, I hope I haven't gone too quickly, but you click on a data table, the table will open. You can adjust or you can add or remove information from the table by simply going to the Add Remove tab. You can go to the Add Remove tab, and it will give you a list of the variables that are included in this table. Any geography that has, or variable that has a plus sign in front of it. So let's see if I can go down to Calgary. So here's Calgary, and there's a plus sign in front of it. So if I click on that plus sign, it'll show me the other areas for which data is available for Calgary and the surrounding communities of Calgary. So I can select those if I want to include them in the table, as well as selecting employment size. So, the data shows how many businesses there are by 1 to 4 employees, 500 or more employees. So I can select all those, and then by the NAICS code. And here is where I wanted to sort of spend some time introducing you to the different NAICS or NAICS codes. So you'll see a list here of sort of the types of industries. Industry is the active nature and activity of the business. And you can select the number of businesses in manufacturing or managerial of companies and enterprises, or all of the subcategories, and include them in the data table. And you'll see the extensive list of industries. These digits refer to the NAICS code. So in this case, this is a broad classification, just 2 digits, or sometimes 3 digits. And you'll see that they get more and more detail. So the basic premise for NAICS codes is the more detailed the code, the more detailed the information about the particular industry. And, there's probably there's thousands of data points here, and we can scroll down and add more and more detail. So you'll start to see the logic now of the NAICS codes are getting more and more detail. And you can add these to the data table and include them and run the data table and have access to it. I'm just going to go back here and change this and simplify what we've included. And I'm going to click apply. And I've exceeded the maximum number of geographies. So let's do just Calgary. And I click apply. And see if I can get this to work. This is because the NAICS codes are so detailed in this table. You see how detailed they become. So if I wanted to just a specific NAICS code, textile manufacturing, I can get the data specifically to that industry by different communities and by industry size and things of that nature. So that's Canadian business patterns. Again, it's really sort of important data sets. One of the data sets we wanted people to be familiar with. And any questions on that? So again, if you want more information, you can see exactly what's included in terms of note to readers of how the information is collected and what it refers to. Any questions? If no questions, and I'm going to spend just a few moments because I do want to I've showed you the indication of how detailed NAICS can be. I just want to give you a link to where you can find additional information about the NAICS code. And when I'm saying NAICS codes, I'm government. I love acronyms. I'm talking about the North American Industrial Classification System. So we have classification systems for industries, and we have classification systems for occupations. In this case, I'll just show you the NAICS and how you can find additional information about the classification system. So this is sort of an introductory page to what the system is, a brief description of the different types of industries as they're coded, and then if you click each of these, they'll add more additional detail. So now we've got a description of what type of activities are included and the subcategories. And if I'm interested particularly in social assistance, I can continue to click and get additional information. I can look at industry, the structure of how it's broken down, and I can look at the definitions of how the industries are defined. So here, if you're not sure what industry you're in or how it's defined, you can click on industry definitions and get more detail. That's the NAICS classification system. Any questions?
Probably some of the questions that a lot of people tend to have is, gee, I don't seem to fit into any of these NAICS codes. That seems to be a popular one. It's like, well, I'm doing this, that, the other thing. So just letting people know that it takes a little bit of digging to get into figuring out your NAICS. But if you are having challenges with some of this kind of stuff, I'm going to remind everyone that Business Link has a freely available market research department right here in Alberta. Our market research department has access to this database and a few other biggies that can give you additional resources and support. And our market research department can also assist you in determining what the heck is my NAICS code and how do I deal with that. So if you go to the Business Link website, do be sure to access our market research department, who can guide you through a little bit of these sorts of things. We also give market research workshops that talk a little bit about this kind of data, but also the other kinds of stuff you can get from other databases. So sign up for our newsletter, because we do hold workshops that are specific to market research in general. And this is one of many databases you're able to access in the world for real granular, what we call quantitative data, so numbers and statistics. And things to remember about that is that this kind of data may not be current as of yesterday, because it takes a lot of collection to deal with. So you have to remember that the data has some lag time for quantitative data of this nature. So if you, Darren has mentioned purchasing lists through StatsCan. How does that work? Can you maybe
well, not necessarily the list, but you can purchase custom requests. So if I wanted to come and get more detail about a particular industry at a very detailed NAICS code, as long as the data is there and it's not indirectly disclosing or identifying a business, we might be able to provide that information. So you can also come in. Sometimes the data tables that we have don't necessarily match exactly what people are looking for. They sometimes want more detail. So you can approach a consulting analyst like myself within StatsCan, and we have consulting analysts who work with clients, and you can get more detailed data than what's available. So you might want, very specific detailed data for Filipino population that's not necessarily reported on the website, but you might be able to get it from a custom request. You can also aggregate different geographical areas together. It's called geocoding or custom geographies. So the geographies that we report, so if you wanted to merge two industrial areas together, they might be reported separately or not reported at the level of detail. Custom requests, you can get data sometimes at smaller levels of geography, or aggregate group together. If you want to group two different communities together and get the data for those as one, those are the type of requests that we can do, particularly through the census, but through other data sets as well. And so that's the type of work that myself and Desiree and others at StatsCan are happy to work with clients. There may be a cost just in terms of preparing the data, but it's an option. It's an option that people can explore. And
we have one here. We have one here. Just it's been sitting a while, so I'm going to ask it. Does StatsCan provide best practices documentation on how their data is used for university researchers or student researchers? Or is that something each university tackles alone and you'd have to reach out to the university for?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have a best practices model. Desiree is more than welcome to interject or post something in the link. I'm not familiar with it. Obviously, we have, it's really helpful that people be familiar with the data quality and the types of data. Like, for example, you've made reference to quantitative data. So it's really, I won't turn this into a research methods class, but we distinguish between quantitative and qualitative data. Quantitative data allows you to quantify, to measure how many businesses there are. But if I were to ask you, how do you feel about those businesses? That's qualitative information, people's opinions, people's views on things. We do have some of that in terms of the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions, because it collects information from businesses in terms of how do they feel about going forward? Do they anticipate experiencing more costs? Do they anticipate hiring or firing or reducing staff, or do they anticipate expanding? So that's sort of more qualitative information that's available from the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. But for the most part, most of the data from Statistics Canada falls under the category of quantitative data. We're trying to give people, Canadians, a sense of, just the magnitude of the number of people employed in different industries. Who are they? Men, women, by age structure, by ethnic origin, by immigration status. So that's sort of the nature of sort of the real key for StatsCan data, is this quantitative aspect. Yeah, I don't know if we have a tool per se, or best practices document per se. I'm not familiar with one, but we certainly do a lot of outreach for universities to help sort of train that next generation of researchers, whether they be quantitative or qualitative researchers, or ideally mixing both disciplines together and being able to sort of, glean the most from the data that we have, or the data that you have. So that was a long-winded answer to basically saying, I don't know if we do or not. Any other questions? And I was just going to say, one of the reasons we spent some time on the NAICS is, if we might not have time today, but if you do go to Innovation and Science and Economic Development Canada, they do have data on financial business finances. So if you can look at business finances by expected revenues, expected expenses, and they report that data, and you can search that data by NAICS code. So that's why we spend a little bit of time just making sure people are familiar with NAICS codes. We don't do it just because, we think it's important. We do it because much of the data about industries are reported in that manner. Any other questions? We have a couple of other data sets. We might not have a lot of time covering it, but I'm going to sort of highlight the fact that we have a data set called the Survey of Household Spending. Survey of Household Spending is really useful because it gives you an indication, because we collect information on how much Canadian households are spending on various goods and services. How much are households spending on cell phones? How much are they spending on pet food? How much are they spending on, whatever else might be of interest? We distinguish and collect data on how many, what they spend in restaurants as opposed to eating at home. That's the Survey of Household Spending. It's a very, very useful data set on Statistics Canada's website, particularly in the context if you're looking for market areas and things of that nature. It also gives characteristics of the different households. Are they owners or renters? And their characteristics in terms of demographic characteristics. So again, if you want to look at, in Calgary, you're thinking about opening a restaurant, you can look to see what is the sort of typical, the median expenditure that different households in different income groups are spending on food in restaurants. Survey of Household Spending allows you to get information like that. Survey of Household Spending for 2021, this just ties into what was being referred to earlier. We do have to recognize that the data is not going to be readily available the week after. There's always going to be some time lag. So the 2021 Survey of Household Spending data is going to be released, I believe it's August, but I don't have a specific date for that. So if you're looking for updated information, that's a really useful source in terms of from a business perspective, or from business planning perspective. Other data sets that are available are, we have surveys on retail trade. So monthly survey of large retailers in terms of what they're selling and things of that nature. We have wholesale trade. We have information on imports and exports. So what is Canada exporting and to whom? So we also have data, specific data. It's called the Canadian International Merchandise Trade, the CIM data source that allows us to look at who our largest trading partners are, what are we importing to Canada, and from whom. So there's a whole host of data that's available on StatsCan's website that could be extremely useful that we may not necessarily have time to get to today, but the CI tool, I think I correct that, is really useful in terms of looking for import and export data. Oh, sorry. Is a really useful tool in terms of finding information on exports by imports, exports by harmonization codes, and just the ability to look to see at the magnitude of products that are being shipped in or shipped out of Canada. Again, can be an extremely useful data set for a business perspective. We're close to running out of time. The only other aspect that I was going to sort of hope to cover today was just the notion that you can go to some of the other data sources, like Innovation and Science and Economic Development Canada, and find performance information in terms of financial performance information for businesses, revenues, expenses, profits, balance sheet items by NAICS. So you can get an indication of how businesses similar to what you might be interested in are faring across the country. We've covered a lot. We've run out of time. Any other questions?
It looks like we don't. We've covered just a ton of information here. So how do people connect with StatsCan on LinkedIn? Does StatsCan have a LinkedIn profile?
Oh, I have to be honest, I don't know. Do we have a LinkedIn profile, Desiree? I'm not sure. You can certainly reach out to Desiree and I, and reach out to InfoStats. InfoStats at statcan.ca is generally the sort of the indirect way to sort of pose questions. And ideally, the people here today might be from all across the country, so you might not just be Alberta. We have consulting analysts across the country who are available to help answer your questions and make the data available to you. So I don't know if Desiree's had a chance to post in the chat the InfoStat contact, but wonderful. Thank you, Desiree. We're a great team. And so InfoStat is usually the sort of the first step at contacting us, and then we'll sort of direct it to who might be in the best position to answer questions. But I have no idea if we have a LinkedIn. I honestly don't know. I have no idea.
And for everyone on this call as well, please visit the Business Link website and check out the market research area as well. A reminder that this recording is going to be posted to the Business Link resources section of the website in the next 1 to 2 business days. So you're able to see it all over again for a period of time. And we have lots and lots of additional market research workshops and support and webinars and things that happen all throughout the year that will show you a little bit more. If you want to go a little bit more in depth about postal codes and want some qualitative data, we can show you sort of the PRISM 5 qualitative data you get from postal codes as well. So lots and lots of great stuff. StatsCan, you are amazing. This is our tax dollars at work. So the reason we all fill out our census forms and the reason censuses are held and the importance of them is that gives you data and information to work with. It gives our government the data they need. It gives Canadian businesses the data they need. And it gives us the data we need to understand how our country changes, how our business environments change, how we fit in and play with all of that together as a group of Canadians. So it's just fabulous to see it in action. And I know it can be complicated because I've tried doing a few things on StatsCan going, oh my God, how do I do this? So it's so lovely that we were able to see you break that down for us today as well and really dive in how to get into these tables and read that information. For everyone who's attended today, I'm going to be sending you a follow-up email with a survey link so that we can get some survey response from you as to how we did today and how Stats Canada did today. So I'll send that out either later today or early tomorrow. And the recording is going to go right up on the Business Link website in the next 1 to 2 days as well. So you'll be able to see it all over again as much as you need. If we need further support in navigating the site, can we reach out to anyone? Do you guys have the email? infostats@statcan, or Desiree or Darren, do you guys have your own email address, or is it better just to go to info@statscan?
No, you sorry to interject. You can reach out to us. We do offer website navigations because we recognize the website can be a bit challenging.
Yeah.
So we do offer that, and feel free, and we'll be happy to either let you know when the next one is, or maybe arrange something for you, and we'll help them.
Okay, so Desiree, if you want to pop the last of the email addresses into the chat, then I'm going to say thank you and goodbye to everyone, and thank you for going a couple minutes over, and we appreciate that. Enjoy lunch, everyone. If you want to stay on and just grab a few things out of chat, I'm going to leave chat open, but we're going to stop the recording and end the meeting in 45 seconds. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
Merci beaucoup, everyone.